Section 3 of Association Football and How to Play It. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 3, Chapters 6 and 7. Chapter 6, Hints to Junior and Amateur Clubs. It is an old adage that the boy is father to the man, and this applies casually to football circles. The boy of today has a great advantage over a boy of, say, 10 or 15 years ago. Every possible opportunity is put in his way for developing his play, as schoolmasters take a bigger interest in their boys than in olden days. Schoolboy internationals and shield competitions are the order of the day, while years ago boys used to meet together, pick sides, put their jackets down for posts, and go full speed ahead without any referee or any official. I have followed closely these schoolboy competitions, and in my heart think they are really a mistake. A boy of 20 years ago had to do all the initial work, which amounted to carrying the goalposts to the field of play, whether it were a common or any other open space. They had to find their own ball, and many times I have given a few pence to an aspiring club. The blowing up of the ball was another great event, and in those days it took a lot of doing, the youth with the strongest and biggest lungs having the privilege of giving the ball its last few blows. The captain always had the honor of carrying the ball to the field of play, and could do practically what he liked with it. Nowadays, things seem completely altered. The boy, instead of doing everything for himself, has everything done for him, and all he has to do is simply turn up in time to change, and go on to the field of play. I think this is a great mistake, and if the youth of today had to go out of his way to a great extent for his Saturday pastime, he would be all the better for it. When I was a youngster, it was nothing unusual for an enthusiast to get out of bed at an unearthly hour in the morning and make all the preparations for the day's game, go back to breakfast, and then turn up at the office at the usual time. To do this, one must be very fond of the game, and such a spirit will carry any club or player right to the front. I have been secretary to both amateur and professional clubs, and my sympathy goes out to the secretary of the first named. The professional secretary or manager has only to say to the player, "Do this," and he does it, like the centurion of old. But the man who holds the reins of an amateur club has to put up with many disappointments through the thoughtlessness of members of his team. I should like to put this point very strongly before these players, and ask them to consider their secretary in every way. Charles Reade wrote a very fine novel, Put Yourself in His Place, and this applies to the case in point. The honorable secretary of an amateur club as a rule is a very busy man, and takes the position from mere love of the game. It must be admitted that it is rough on him to find on Saturday morning that many players cannot put in an appearance at the match, and could have saved him all the trouble of wiring and sending round the district for another player, if they had only let him know a day or two before, so that he would have had a chance of filling the places they had vacated. It means a great deal of trouble to him which, for the sake of a little thought, could have easily been avoided. I am speaking feelingly now, and if any player happens to read this chapter, I hope you will consider this matter seriously. Junior and amateur clubs have a few failings that I might be permitted to point out. I might start in the first place with punctuality. Although this is considered by many a virtue, it is not so considered by them. Probably before a match starts, 20 players have to wait for the dilatoriness of the other 2. Of course, there are exceptional circumstances which are excusable, but the unpunctuality of the players in junior and amateur matches has done a great deal of harm from the spectatorial point of view. Professional clubs soon realize this point, and much of their success in league matches is due to the players and officials being invariably ready to start at the advertised time of kickoff. If a professional is late, a severe penalty is imposed upon him, and the Football League are most autocratic in knowing that the referee and linesman are always there at the correct time, and if they are late, they are liable to be fined. Regarding training for juniors, it only behooves a boy to be thoroughly fit and well. If he indulges in some summer game such as cricket, tennis, or golf, or if he plays regularly lawn tennis, he should start the season quite fit and well. If, however, he feels in the summer not inclined to follow any of these pastimes, he ought to go in for walking or swimming so as to reduce his weight and thus enable him to go onto the field and play as usual. In recent years, one has heard and read a great deal about special training, And I may remark that special training is not really necessary, even from a professional point of view. What is necessary is to keep the players well together, regular hours for meals, and off to bed in good time. It is the esprit de corps that must be cultivated. The junior, who is at business all the week, should require but little training. His match on the Saturday, if he leads a regular life, should be quite sufficient to enable him to turn up on that day as fit as possible. Still, if he has a little time to spare, a few short sprints once or twice a week will do him a great deal of good. He may probably add 2 or 3 yards in 100, and speed is a great asset in modern football. Probably 1 yard in 20 is of infinitely more advantage than, say, 5 in 100, and for that reason alone I have always encouraged a player, if he can possibly do so, to go in for short sprints from 25 yards to 50. Should he not be able to run on an open piece of ground, there would be no harm in putting on a pair of canvas shoes at home and sprinting for 50 yards on the pavement opposite his house, or on the road if the district is fairly quiet. Nobody will take any notice, especially after the first once or twice, and on coming indoors, take a hot bath. If going out again, never forget to have a cold plunge afterwards. I am a great believer in hot baths for taking away any nasty knock or soreness, but they must be taken with the greatest possible care so as to avoid catching cold. There is no finer sensation, after having a hot bath, than to jump into a stone cold one, or to stand under a shower. It makes you tingle all over, and after having a rub-down, you feel like a giant refreshed. Am I a believer in Turkish baths? Is a question often asked me, and I must admit that I generally qualify my reply. Once now and again does no harm. To indulge in them regularly to me seems a great mistake, as they are certainly most lowering. Another point I should like to dwell upon is that the junior of today makes a practice of playing with his cap on, especially in wet weather. I must honestly state that I hate to see anyone playing with a headgear. It seems to me strange, and I know many a player who has caught a very bad cold through playing in this way, and after changing, going home in the same. If he has a change, it is not so bad, but it takes a longer time for this cap to dry than his hair, and it is some considerable time before the former is fit to wear after getting soaked. Just a word in conclusion to the juniors. Play the game as it should be played. Do not hold your opponents up to ridicule by beating them 2 or 3 times when once will suffice. Get as many goals as you possibly can, for a team will prefer to be beaten by double figures rather than know that their opponents were toying with them and could score whenever they chose. Be loyal to your club and clubmates, and do not forget that enthusiasm is the great thing that will carry you to the front, in football as well as in other spheres in life. Unselfishness is also another great point. Should your captain or committee choose another man as your superior, do not grumble, but turn out for the second 11 and play with all your heart and soul, and if you have the merit, you will soon regain your old position in the first team. Above all, play the game fairly and squarely, and you will succeed, either as a professional, senior, junior, or amateur. Chapter 7. Captaincy. There are a good many people who think that the office of captain is not very important, but my idea is that the judicious choice of a skipper is very great indeed. I've heard it said that the office is an empty honor in a professional club, but I'm sure that this is a great mistake, and in an ordinary club as much depends on the leader as all the rest put together. The best players in the world are sacrificed if placed under an inefficient general, but on the other hand, a leader of ability and energy has often made a strong club out of what seemed to be very unpromising material. So the best all-round player should be skipper. It seems to me quite necessary that whoever holds this position must have the confidence of every member of the side, and there can only be one leader in the field, and unless any fellow has ability and character enough to gain the loyal support of his men, he had certainly better never think about taking the office. So many clubs fail because they have no confidence in their leaders. Ernest Needham, the great leader of the Sheffield United side, has said that when a team is in a winning mood, how proud the captain may be, but what a difficult post he has to feel when a team is on the downward grade and losing match after match. The man you choose should have a thorough knowledge of the game, and also enthusiasm and keenness, which should be a standing rebuke to that subtle spirit of slackness which is so characteristic of our men today. Personally, I'm very sorry to see this, and if you have at the head one who sets an example of hard work, coolness, and determination, you may be sure that he will do his best to get all he can out of his men. Example is far better than precept. Now, the captain should be the oldest member of a team as a rule, and the one with most experience. Alexander Tate and Walter Bull, when they were leaders of the Spurs, were examples of ability and experience going hand in hand, and they naturally commanded respect. As a rule, the captain should decide on the composition of the team and what they should do. If he has an idea he can improve it by giving a few new men a trial, he should inform his committee, who in a small club should always be men who have played and know the game. They too must have perfect confidence in the man they have chosen, and allow him a very free hand if they wish to get the best results. One caution which has often been uttered but each season seems to need repetition is that when the side is playing, the captain has absolute control of his men, and is responsible for their formation and play. He should be above favoritism, for in junior clubs the leader has often favorites, and no matter how very able the man may be himself, one player does not make a team, and it is necessary to be friendly with all, and not be partial to anybody. The game and the ability of each for his particular part in it must be the chief consideration, and I hope that this will ever be so. Without it, there will be no success. Again, it is very necessary that a captain should be in a position to be able to point out the errors of each one, so that there may be no resentment. On the field of play, too, he must feel that he has the support of his men, because it is when they are playing matches that he has great responsibility. He will carefully watch for openings on the part of the opposing club, and if he thinks he detects a weak place, will direct the play so as to take advantage of this and gain the upper hand, giving his comrades hints as to how this may be done. Many captains that I know of hardly speak a word on the field of play, but the interval forms a very useful opportunity indeed for advice, which must be taken in the proper spirit. He will watch the play of his opponents, and adopt what he thinks will be the best game. Ernest Needham remembers how in the great cup tie, Sheffield United against Liverpool, his side were 10 minutes from the close of play, 2 goals down, and then played 8 forwards, 1 back, and 1 half-back, and in this way managed to get a draw game. Of course, as he explains, goals against them mattered little, but the Liverpool forwards were soon offside in their attempt to break away. In this case, the captain was in a weak position, and reverted to what may seem a strange formation in order to save the day. 2 great captains who have left their mark upon the game have been Howard Spencer and V.J. Woodward. Spencer was the leader of Aston Villa, and he gained his unique position by qualities that may well be imitated. He was something more than an English gentleman and sportsman. He was perhaps the fairest player ever known to the game. He has never been known to lose his temper, and self-restraint seemed to him perfectly natural. No player or referee has ever accused him of a willful foul, and he has nothing except honest and straightforward play and skill. His knowledge of the game was very great, and is shown by the fact that his club won the league championship 4 times, while 3 times in 10 years he helped Aston Villa to win the English Cup. I dare say, like the rest of humanity, he had faults, but at the same time, he stood out a man who was a brainy player of great ability. The other man is V.J. Woodward, who has hardly reached the zenith of his fame. He is very fair in his play, and is ever heartily welcomed by those who have the pleasure of his acquaintance. It was a mere accident that brought him to the front. A Tottenham supporter happened to see him taking part in a local game at the time when G.O. Smith was retiring, and he was invited to show his prowess in good company, with what result everybody knows. If he has been left out of a side, it is perhaps because he is so unselfish that he has not been chosen on every occasion that he might have been, but nature and skill asserted themselves, and he is the unanimous choice of the selectors now. He would rather lose a game than win it by dirty tactics. He is never individual and always gives the others a chance. To my mind, he is the ideal captain of the day, and everyone who wishes to be successful as a leader should go and watch him. The young player must always remember to keep perfect control over his temper, or he will do very little. Walter Bull thinks the ideal place for a skipper is that of center half, but some others have preferred the goalkeeper's place. In the latter, you have all the play before you, but from center half, hints can be passed unobserved to the front line. Alexander Tate of Leighton was ever quiet as a captain, no shouting on the field of play, but a friendly tip during the interval. What you regard as hard lines will often try your temper, but if you expect your side to obey the referee and the spectators to behave well, you must show the way. The skipper who succeeds is the man of few words on the field, though off it he may say a great deal. The club's affairs will go much more smoothly if he tries to be fair. No personal feeling must interfere with his choice of a player, the best man for the position and the one who plays not for himself but for his side. Today combination is required. I know one brilliant international who was very individual. Remonstrances were of no use, and at last came the time when he had to be left out of the team. He was a nice fellow, and since he left he has been captain for his country. One man, good as he may be, cannot win a match, and the captain, at least, should be free from reproach. End of section 3.